Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, and welcome to this week's show. I have a question for you. Have you ever gotten stuck in a power struggle at work or in a relationship? If you have, you know how utterly frustrating that can be. Well, my guest today is here to help us understand why we get stuck in these power struggles and how we can redefine our relationship to power to avoid them or to better navigate them. My guest, Christian de la Huerta, is an award-winning author. He's a TEDx speaker and a personal transformation coach with 30 years of experience. And he's got a new book out. It's called Awakening the Soul of Power. And it's been described by music icon Gloria Estefan as a balm for the soul of anyone searching for truth and answers to life's difficult questions. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So I'm curious about what put you on this mission of yours I know you've always been involved in personal development and spiritual growth, but what inspired you to address this issue of power and to write this book?
So paraphrasing Einstein, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness in which it was created. And when I think about the world that we're in and all the overwhelming challenges that we're facing, I really think that the only way out of that collective hole that we have dug ourselves into is nothing short of a spiritual revolution, a leap in consciousness. So what I see my work to do, whether it's the writing or the speaking or the retreats, is helping as many people to pop out and to find a sense of freedom and personal empowerment and freedom from the self-imposed prison that, of lack and fear and limitation.
Well, in today's world, power is a very loaded word. And what would you say is a common misunderstanding about power?
Yeah, you're right. Most of us have an ambivalent relationship to power. We want it, but we're afraid of it. And no wonder, all we got to do on any given day is turn on the news or even glance through the headlines, and we're witnessing constantly an abuse of power. And so also because we're so conditioned, to suppress ourselves and to run away from our emotions, we are trained to avoid conflict, to run away from confrontation. So when you put all those things together, is we end up giving away our power. We end up selling our power away so cheaply for illusions of acceptance, for morsels of pseudo love, and it's not a very effective strategy. And what we risk at a personal level, if we're selling ourselves out and stuffing ourselves into smaller packages, it's a life of soul-devouring mediocrity. And so if we want to have the kind of relationships that we long for and deserve to have, if we want to have a sense of personal empowerment, if we want to have inner peace, if we want to really be able to step into our purpose, our mission level work, it's really important that we reconcile with and find a way to express our power in a way that's congruent with who we are, that's a match with who we are. So we can learn how to do that with courage and with strength and balance with compassion and gracefulness.
So why do you think this is such a problem, Christian?
Well, on the personal level, it's for that, because we're selling ourselves out and playing small. And there isn't another person in this life, in this world, in this universe that has the same genetics, the same kind of experiences that make us unique. So if we don't give expression to that, ain't nobody else going to do it. So from that level of personal satisfaction and fulfilling our unique human potential, it's imperative that we do that. And then if we zoom out and look at the global situation, power is up as a planet, as a species for us to look at. How do we want to relate to power? How do we want to express it? And if we don't figure this out, what's at risk is that we sell ourselves collectively on our freedoms, on our power, or we end up blowing each other up in the name of God, ironically.
That's definitely a problem. we don't want to do that.
And I know that you get this because this is the kind of work that you do as well, is empowering people to fulfill their own potential.
Yeah. I'm curious. I want to delve back into your life a little bit because we've got a few extra minutes here in the interview. You how did you come to this realization? How did you discover your own personal power? Was that a journey for you? Did you always know you had it? What happened?
My God, talk about a personal journey. I can't tell you how painfully shy I was as a teenager. I was okay one-on-one. If you introduced the third person, I clammed up. To the degree, Jack, that I had a 4.0 in college, in high school, except for 1B. So from current perspective, looking back on it, I sabotaged my GPA so that I wouldn't have to be the valedictorian. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't up to speak in front of a room of hundreds of people. So just the thought terrified me. And and I know my adolescence was one long depression, I could say, with even suicidal thoughts. So it's kind of ironic for me to be writing about personal empowerment and heroism, which is what this book series is about. How do what it means to live heroically in the 21st century. And so, but the power of that is that I know these teachings work. I know the teachings that I'm sharing in this book and that I share in my retreats and my workshops. I know they work from personal experience, and I know how freeing and empowering they are. So that's the power of me having. These days, I speak in front of thousands of people. I've spoken internationally all over the world. I actually, get paid for being a public speaker. I'm a professional speaker, you could say, in addition to a teacher and a retreat facilitator. So that I know that if I can do it, if I can break free, and if I can transform, it's like I know anybody can.
So talk just a little bit about your book. I love your book. There's a lot of chapters. Each chapter has a different theme and this kind of heroic journey. Some of the tools that you have in there, some of the, lack of a better word, exercises, disciplines, practices, whatever. Can you describe a couple of those to our viewers so they know kind of what they're in for?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted the book to be as practical as possible. So that each chapter, I intentionally kept them short, like bite-sized chapters. And what makes it different is that each chapter has like what I call hero tasks or power practices. So they're designed to help us embody the teachings, so that we can really apply them to our lives, so that it doesn't stay in the hypothetical realm. I mean, that's what we're here about. It's about personal transformation. This isn't just theory. It's not woo-woo stuff. It's like we really want our lives to change. And yes, I frame this whole journey around the hero's journey, and so that I say that it's courageous. It takes courage to be willing to look inside and to face some of the stuff that happened in our past, or to look at some of our own perceived inadequacies or fears. And yet it's so worth it, because there's our freedom, right? In our willingness to look at them and go through them. Then we disempower the ways and the patterns, the belief system that have been holding us back. And so that's what the teachings are about. They're all the chapters will kind of take you on a journey from hand, by the hand. And the first chunk of it is understanding how the mind works, how the ego mind works, which is the source of all our suffering. So if we again are longing to have relationships that can actually work, if we're longing to have a sense of wholeness and inner peace and personal empowerment and a life filled with meaning and purpose, it's really important that we are willing to do the work of diving within and facing ourselves for the sake of freedom, not only personally, so that then we can step and make a difference in the world, which is what drives anybody who's sitting here listening to this.
When you were writing this book, was there a certain kind of person you were writing to? You said, okay, this is the kind of person that needs this book? Or do you think everybody needs this book? Who do you think needs your book and your message the most?
I think the answer is yes. It has the book is for everybody, but it has a particular focus or message for women. Stemming from my conviction that the single most important thing that needs to happen in the world is the empowerment of women. And it's not to idealize women. Women are equally capable of abusing power, but the world's been so off balance. And so, when I look at strategically, everything that's going on in the world, if I could focus on one thing that might make a difference, it's that. Because when women are in 50% of power, we're going to have a very different relationship to war and peace and poverty and hunger and social justice and how we treat the environment, all of it. And at the same time, there's a message from it too. I have a chapter on what it means to be a man in the 21st century, because, of course, without minimizing the horrible effect that women have had to pay because of the imbalance of power in the world in terms of the genders, and which is completely unacceptable. But men have also paid a price for that. So men have also paid a price for that. So the system of toxic masculinity and patriarchal system doesn't work for men either. So we look at example numbers like the rate of longevity in this country. Women outlive men by 3 years. If we look at worldwide numbers, women outlive men by 6 years or 7 years. And the rate of suicide in this country, it's like 4 times as many men commit suicide. And in fact, 70% of suicides in this country are committed by white men. So the system doesn't work for men either, right? And that's because we have mistakenly, and we've had this misunderstanding and made the feminine a sign of weakness. So, so men walk around with a pseudo macho way of being where we just suppress ourselves and suppress our experience and suppress our emotions, which are neither good or bad or strong or weakness. Emotions are just energy. So when we suppress all those energies, there's a price to pay, right? They're either we suppress it and it comes out inappropriately in a reactive mode that brings damage to our relationships, or it's going to show up in the body. That energy is going to start showing up in disease, heart attacks and ulcers and cancer. So it's really important for all of us that we learn to get in touch with our emotions and figure out a way to express them, and that we reconcile our relationship to power.
No, I totally agree with that. It's well stated. Thank you. So I wish we had more time. We'd unpack more of this, but we don't. It's the nature of these shows. But I have a question for you that I want to ask you at the end here. And that's, where can people learn more about your work? I know you've got this great book you've written. You have a coaching program. You speak. You run workshops and retreats. Where can people find out? Where can they find your book, and where can they find out more about your work?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon and any place where you can buy a book, basically, your local bookstore, if they're still open. And my best way to reach me is through my website, which is soulfulpower.com. Soulfulpower.com. Yeah, and thank you, Jack. I really appreciate you taking the time and the opportunity to sit here with you in conversation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I think the work you're doing is important. And I think that anyone who participates in it, not only are they going to get the value of it, but why I do it is that I care about them, but I care about the world at large. And I know each person, when they step into that essence of who they truly are and bring that forward, the whole world benefits. So thank you for the work you do, Christian. It's really heroic itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope this has been valuable for you. His book's great. You ought to get a copy of it and read it. And I really encourage you to go to his website, find out about his workshops and his speaking, his coaching program, which I know is a great program. So again, thank you for joining us. Please join us again next week, where we'll have another guest, someone who will either motivate you, inspire you, uplift you, or educate you, so that you can live in the world that is one that works for everybody and also works for you. And we can live in greater harmony, greater love, greater peace, and greater joy. So until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and look inside yourself, see what's going on, and perhaps have the courage to face some of those inner demons. And literally, in the process of doing that, discover what's underneath that is the essence of who you really are. Don't be afraid to do that, take that journey. All right. See you next week.